right. It is season 2, episode 1 of Formula One Fans of America. Now I get to make Monday my favorite day of the week again. Good seeing you guys. We definitely took a little bit of a break. Yeah, enjoyed our downtime during the off season for Formula One. I have been just jam-packed busy with personal work stuff. But yeah, I'll have a little bit more free time coming up next week when I go back home. So yeah, moving and just doing a ton more than I normally was. But all good things. Looking forward to getting back to the States. I'll be in the same time zone as, or slightly different time zone as most of you guys, but still a little
When
bit
does
closer
that happen?
here.
When do you get back?
I land on Monday.
Okay.
Damn.
Yeah,
Cool.
so hopefully I can watch the GP on the plane. But if I can't, I'll just watch it Monday when I land. We are going to switch things up a little bit with the show this season. So we're going to probably do a Monday episode and a Thursday episode as best as we can manage it. We have tons and tons of content, and our episodes can go very long. And B, it's just better scheduling, so we keep Craig involved. So
that's cool.
Let's jump right into it. So this episode, we're going to discuss primarily the Drive to Survive season, and curious to hear. I'll hold off on my thoughts and opinion, but I'm curious to see what your guys' thoughts of it were. And Jay, go ahead. We were already kind of teeing it up, so I'll start with you. What did you think about
the
this
fact that I think they made all 4 of the top 4 teams look complete ass because they're clipping was beyond ridiculous. Like, I distinctly remember after the Miami GP where Max was fucking ecstatic for Lando. Like, I think he was happier than Lando was. But yet they showed him in his hat from Zandvoort in the cooldown room and being all like sulky and shit like that and everything like that. Like, it was like, wait a second here. That hat was only used for one fucking GP. I don't think this means what you think it means, And then there was shit from Russell as well that was like way out of place. And I'm like, what in the world? Like, I only made it through probably 6 or 7 episodes and I was just like, I'm done. I can't watch this. Like, it was so bad.
Yeah, I'm not as big of a fan of the format and the way the episodes went. It's also strange to me that they seem to leave so much on the cutting room floor. Like, this is a long season. We covered, tons of topics and exciting points throughout the season that didn't get their just dessert. I think, like, there was nothing about the Ollie Behrman, my favorite part of the season and moment that I highlighted so many times for 2024 was Ollie Behrman's radio call for the gap to Hamilton. And that was gone out of there. They didn't have Russell getting DQ'd. What else did they miss? They missed some other key moments of the season. They did a fairly decent job with Danny Ricks, send off and leaving the sport. I'm glad that he kind of got something out of that whole thing because that that perturbed me. But the format of the show where it jumped back and forth throughout the timeline of the season, I didn't like. I felt like it should be linear throughout. It's also like they have an intrusive level of access to the paddock and these teams and these drivers. And like, this was the best you could do. It was very lackluster to me. It was not a good way of coverage compared to the amount of access that they have. And it's also just not a solid amount of content considering all of the things happen. So like, I get it. Like, it's 10 episodes. They're 35 to 45 minute long. You can only include so much stuff, but this is Netflix. You guys can change that. You guys dictate what you do and produce. This is your show. So like, I don't understand why we don't have 24 episodes, one per every race of the season and even more. And I also don't understand why it takes so damn long to get this released. Like, this is Netflix. You guys have all the resources in the world available to you. So it's just a disproportionate and shitty outcome for all the preparation and what goes in. But Fabian, what are your thoughts on this?
You're muted.
I don't disagree with any of that, actually. I do, however, also have some observations about some of the things that I liked about it. Um, Particularly, I like the way they handled the introduction of the Horner stuff and how they gave us a little bit of a deep dive into his psyche because they let us see him be affected by it, by, when he said, "Come on, let's just get on with it." You could tell that he was like, it wasn't the fighting version of Horner that said, "I want to get on with it." It was a despondent, dejected Horner that said that. What was also interesting is then a few episodes later, you get the statement from the communications guy saying, "We're gonna every time you do a presser, we're gonna tell them these things are off limits." And Max goes, "Uppercut," and he's like, "Yeah, give it to him." We're like, "Fuck them," basically. And I thought that was really interesting to me. I still don't know how I really feel about it. It was like, I don't know why Max felt like that was something he should say or would say. It was really just surprising because it was so early in the breaking of the story that you could tell that Max allegiantly was siding with Horner on the deal. And then it follows that up after all that with the release of the content, right? And then it kind of it spins up all over again. And that's when you could see the brash fighting side of Horner start to emerge, understandably, because he's under assault, he's under attack. I understand that very, very well. And that was interesting to me, the way they layered those aspects of that trilogy of events that occurred. And then, of course, the culminating piece of all that was Drive to Survive is about to drop. And then right at the cusp of that, you get the news that there's a lawsuit filed now. So there was quiet throughout the whole thing. After those things that I mentioned we saw in the season happen in the show, quiet all the way through till now. And then last week, we find out there's this lawsuit popping up. So right at the start of the season again, there's another push on this thing. So it's dramatic stuff, because, and as you saw in the show, people were saying, "Oh, he won't last the week. He won't be here by the weekend." Well, he said screw you to everybody because not only was he there, but, their driver won the World Drivers' Championship despite all that tumultuous stuff going on, right? And his wife stood strong by him, side by side, lockstep throughout the whole thing. And for the most part, you got to see a bit more of a human side of him, that you never got to see before, because he can be a bit cocky, to say the least, and a bit snarky. And some of that started to seep in towards the end of the season. You could see it starting to come back. But he was definitely not the same guy we saw in seasons 6, 5, and 4, right? So I thought that was really,
for sure.
Yeah, I thought the way they covered it was they didn't overboard it. They didn't go crazy with it, but they gave us some of the really interesting highlights of that.
No, good, excellent points. And you definitely did see the human side of him because you got to watch him squirm. He's a man that knows when the cameras are on and how to play into them. You also saw him like visibly stressed out and upset, which is not a typical characteristic of him, especially on display. Like I said, he knows where those cameras are at and he knows how to play up to them. So it was interesting. I like that you brought up the things that you did like. So I'll jump onto that and give Jay a chance to respond too, because like I said, I did like the Danny Rick coverage. That was nice.
Yeah.
I did not think that Max to Mercedes was ever a real serious plot line or storyline. It seemed like they kind of played up onto that a little bit. You also got to see a little bit of Jos Verstappen's role playing out there too. So I like that they covered and highlighted that and how his influence into Max's career still exists pretty strongly. Mm-hmm. And I just honestly love the behind the scenes drivers coverage, getting to see these guys, kind of in their elements or home life outside and off the track and see their human sides. It reminds you that, these guys are more than just 20 of the most phenomenal race car drivers in the world, but that they're actual human beings. They did a fairly good job of covering the rookies, I think. Although I think they could have done a little bit more there because these are all new personalities that we're going to have to sort of learn about and embrace. So I do wish they would have done a little bit more rookie coverage, but I think they did a fairly good job. Yeah, Jay, what did you think? What would you like about the season?
So I will say my honest favorite part, and Fabian just made me think of it with the villain thing, basically, that Horner's always been the villain in Drive to Survive. Horner goes straight up. He goes, well, are you guys going to make me the villain again this season? And they go, what are you talking about? We've never made you. He's like, yeah, seasons 1 through 6. And I'm like, you know what? That's pretty accurate. Like,
it is.
I think seeing Toto squirm trying to find a driver was arguably one of the highlights of that, because every time you see Toto, he's calm, he's collected, except for at Abu Dhabi. But you get what I mean, like whenever he's talking to me,
or the radio call to Russell.
Yeah,
that
was another aspect of getting to see things we hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
I mean, Toto, like, I just want a hug, which I thought that was really interesting too, because I was trying to put myself in his shoes as I'm watching it play out, right? Because we know what happened. We covered it ad nauseum, right, throughout the season. But to see it was like I was really trying to figure out, like, man, walking into that room, how is this going to be? And and his sentiment was sadness. He was just sad. And I thought, wow, that's interesting, because he's normally just like the T1000. He sounds like Arnold. He acts like Arnold. And it wasn't that at all. I mean, he was reaching for some sense of normalcy and things. Even when Hamilton jazzed him about the livery and how it was kind of looked like 2 cars cut in half, put together.
Yep.
Toto was reaching for, come on, don't bash it too bad, please. Like, I'm taking a beating enough as it is right now, because I got to figure out what the hell I'm going to do with you leaving, So yeah, it was real. That's good stuff, Jay.
I didn't even think about it like this. Like, how much shit do you think Toto caught for actually losing Hamilton?
I don't know. I mean,
because we talked about the comments he made that every driver has their shelf life and everything like that,
right?
And everything, but we never got into the dynamics of, like, how does he actually play this,
right?
Not
to mention,
you could
both
tell.
Mercedes. Oh, sorry.
You could tell that he was very heartbroken about it, right? And so you'd have to think that the team at Mercedes, everybody was pretty heartbroken and shaken by this. And so I don't think it's necessarily like he's getting blamed for it, because that decision is ultimately Lewis's, at the end of the day, right? And so I don't know how much of the blame he can really absorb or how much can be placed on him. It seemed very much like Lewis was going to leave no matter what. And had it in his mind that there was time for a change and a shakeup, and then he wasn't getting out of Mercedes what he needed. You could blame that on Toto slightly, I guess, but ultimately at the end of the day, it was just a Lewis decision. Yeah. I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I think that Lewis was in control of his destiny through and through. I don't think that there was much that Toto could do. I remember when Fred mentioned, because we didn't know this part, and I was like grateful to hear it, when Fred said it was done that way deliberately. Like Fred and Lewis were cooking that the whole time. And like you said, it was done that way deliberately. Because the first thing my wife said, Autumn watched it with me, which was great. And so I really enjoyed that. And she said, holy shit, why would he tell them then and have the entire season to go through this? And I'm like, I don't know. Even Will Buxton's like, that's a long divorce, And then Fred comes in later and says, well, it was deliberate. We needed to get that behind us and know where we were heading into the future. We didn't care about what it was going to do to Mercedes. And then you saw that interaction between Hamilton and Signs, where they first seemingly, it looked like they first talked. They made it look like he didn't even say hello to him at the grid reveal, and he did, right? But they made it seem like they're talking for the first time, and the first words are, "So have you talked to Toto?" No, they haven't talked to me. If they were interested. Really interesting stuff. So there's little nuances throughout what they did deliver in the show that I think are really interesting.
Some of it, though, too, like I'm not a fan of any kind of contrived drama, especially not with this, where there's so much real drama that exists. Like, you don't need to do these editing and clipping tricks to like Jay was pointing out with Max. Like, you don't need that shit. Come on. Like, there's enough legit on-track and off-track drama going on that you can cover and that didn't get covered. And that's ultimately, like, my big criticism of this is that, like, yeah, for everything that they have, all of the content, all of the placement and access, all of the money and resources and ability to produce a program, this wasn't up to par for the greatest racing series in the world. It just didn't marry up, in my opinion, as far as quality and level of content.
I agree. You could feel the difference. I mean, we stumbled. When I started to play it for Autumn, I mistakenly put on season 1, episode 1. We just kind of started watching, and I was like, something's not right. This can't, But even the introduction of that season is miles ahead of the entire season of season 7. Like, you can just tell it has a different feel, different pace, a different tempo. There's just a whole different energy around it. And we watched those first 12 minutes before I realized, wait, this is the wrong season. As soon as I saw the first spoiler on one of the cars, I was like, wrong deal. Did you see the article that F1 did called In the Numbers about Drive to Survive's production? Did you see that? So
I did not. No.
It's interesting. So they give you numbers. The first one says, number 1, early episodes in each season can be put together by just one editor and edit producer with plenty of time between content being captured and the release date. The later episodes typically include footage of final races of the previous campaign, will often be created by a group of editors. The differences can be seen in the end credits of each episode. So I'm going to go back and look at that for one, because that talks to what you were saying about like how many people involved. So it's 160 total people involved in the production of it. And they begin editing episodes after they film the first race, right? So they're already
editing. I just hate this format then. Like that's bullshit, because there's enough week in, week out. Like, we do a show with multiple hours of content and coverage for each race weekend, and can even do it during the off weekends because there's so much to cover during an F1 season. Mm-hmm. I get you want to do this where there's like, oh, let's follow a storyline or a plot line throughout the season, but you can do that with more content, more episodes. Not get the fuck off with this nonsense. Yeah. Like, this is stupid.
So six main cameras, doesn't work. 20 mics, and then they go on with the numbers all the way up until they get to the 90 million people who've watched and all that kind of stuff. But it's a really interesting insight into how they put it together.
I just think that they could do better, should be doing better, especially when it comes for Formula One. So,
I agree.
But I'll hop off my soapbox. It is still like good coverage. Let's talk about some other F1 media changes. So there is going to be, what is it, like a pro version now, or an upgraded version of F1 TV? Go ahead and jump on that.
I was working on that today because that was driving me absolutely insane. So there's Pro, and then there's Pro Extreme, I think it's called. Or let me get the terminology for it. So it's pretty damn cool. It's called, so it's Pro or TV Premium. Those are the two tiers. Pro is the one we had that we've enjoyed. Premium goes a little bit higher in cost, but it brings together the ability to set up your screen with multiple car cameras, the telemetry cameras, and still have a big version of the race at the same time. Kind of what we talked about last year when I said my wife was going to let me put a TV up on the wall to put the telemetry up. I don't have to do that now because I can just take my 55-inch and dice it up.
If I read it correctly, you can also do up to 6 devices at once for your plan. With the big upgrade. And also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the price. So the normal one that we've had last year and the year before was $90. I think this is $150.
So it was $84.99, I think, is what I paid. last year.
Okay.
I think it was $84.99. This is $129.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a negligible increase for
what you get.
I consider to be the best money I spend all year long.
I mean, if it works the way they said it's going to work, it's going to be amazing. I mean, really, because I've already started trying to map out what I want to have, and the idea that I can actually see that overlay map, and splits and stuff like that, and possibly 2 car cams at the same time with still a big screen to race. That's pretty freaking amazing.
I'm super stoked and excited. I don't know of anything that provides the level of content and coverage that is better than what the FIA is doing and Formula One is doing with this. It's really just the coolest app, and it's not just because we are all obsessed with Formula One. It really just is great tech, great access.
Yeah.
Having the ability to watch multiple driver cams, like we've addressed this, is like this is one of the coolest features of the app, period, is that you can go in to do the individual cars. And I'm not a big enough NASCAR or IndyCar guy to know if they have something similar. I do know that when you're at the tracks, you can get a radio and move through the different broadcasts, but I don't know if they have an app like this. This is freaking sweet, and I am super stoked for it. So yeah, shut up, take my money.
Yeah, it's a good move. I did have an issue. I went into the app today. I was supposed to renew on March 24th. So I went in to do the renew me, but instead chose the premium tier for the annual rate of $129, paid it. So I guess with the taxes and everything, it was like $143, right? So it deducted the payment, and then the screen refreshed, and it still had upgrade now on the screen, which caught my attention because I thought that shouldn't be there anymore if I've done it. So I go to the Apple subscription section of my phone and look, and it says I'm on TV Premium. $129 renews March 10th of 2026. So I've got the money out of the account. I see it's it's provisioned in my app. But when I go into the actual F1 TV app, it's not there. So I wound up having to send an email. I wound up on some German site that it linked me to. Like it said, hey, thanks for reaching out, but this is a non-monitored inbox. Fill out this form. And I go to the form. It's all in German. But then I noticed a little chat bubble at the bottom corner. So I clicked it on the off chance that I wasn't going to get Sprechen Sie Deutsch, And sure enough, the bot comes on and asks me what the problem is. It says it's a bot. And I tell it, and it says, hold on, we're going to put you with a live person. Just stick around. Well, 9 minutes later, a live person actually showed up. Some guy named John Kent comes on and says, what's going on? I tell him. He figures, okay, let me just cancel your old subscription, and that should refresh it for you. He did that, didn't work. So I just wound up setting up a new account on a new email, repurchased it, contacted Apple for the refund, and that's how I resolved it. But I do have it now. So that was
an issue with it in the past when I switched countries. And so I had to go in and there was a restore purchase button or something like that. And that's what did it for me. But yeah, I didn't have any issues. I would recommend, so if any of the listeners you're signing up on this, do it from a web browser, and it'll populate through your account, and then you won't have to deal with the iOS billing subscription settings. That's probably what it is. Because I try not to use that iOS billing because of this exact reason.
That's exactly what the guy John Kent told me. He said, when you do your new account, do it from the web browser, and I'll have more control over what it does in the future if you have a problem.
Exactly. So good PSA for everybody out there, because I know a lot of people are going to be interested in this upgrade. Go to your web browser, sign up for it. That's what I will be doing shortly after this program. What do we have for bold predictions for 2025, guys? We've got several rookies on the grid this year. One of the questions that I want to jump out with for a bold prediction is, do you think that all of the rookies from this year will be there in 2026, or will we lose one? And if we do lose one, who would it be? So you guys are already both unanimously no. Okay.
Yeah.
Alpine, dude. Carlo Pinto will take the seat mid-season.
Okay.
Yeah. Kimi Antonelli is really like ice. That dude is really sharp. I've been watching his interviews and just paying attention to his lap times during testing and things like that. He was very quick and very consistent. I think that kid's going to win some Grand Prix this year, not just one. I think he's going to win a couple. Because he's
I like that pretty bold prediction.
That's a bold prediction, but I think he's going to win a couple. I think he's got the skill, the mental fortitude, even enough of the car to do it.
I think Behrman will have a decent season, but he's still driving in a Haas. So even though they surged up, towards even though they did, they improved dramatically the second half of the season last year, right? Unless that stays up, like he doesn't have much of a shot at a podium. But Haas can easily be 6th or 5th team on the grid if that car is performing the way that it was at the end of 2024. I think Liam Lawson has like the most pressure on him of anybody.
Agreed.
Not necessarily a rookie, right? But like sort of, for first full season for him. And given the history of Red Bull Racing, we know that they will not hesitate to cut a non-performer. In spite of what we saw last year with Checo. How did you guys feel about that coverage of Checo? And also, what are you guys' thoughts on the Liam Lawson being on just that seat? That second driver's seat is a hot seat for a new driver. What are you guys' thoughts on both those things?
That seat is a hot seat no matter what. If it's a veteran, it's probably even worse on a veteran. Especially a veteran.
And it wasn't with Checo.
Checo brought a fuck ton of money in, though.
We've discussed it ad nauseum, but like you can't say that really, right? Because the evidence controverts it. It wasn't like other drivers where they were willing to just toss him out. They stuck with him for arguably far too long, and I don't think that there's anybody, yourself included, that would say that no, they should have held on to him until the end of the season.
Well,
I'll tell you, hold on to him until the end of the season.
What's that?
Like, I mean, like they were trying to, right? Like for as long as they held on to him, they shouldn't have.
Yeah, but
I mean, it was damn near the end of the season.
They didn't let go of him until after the season was over, dude.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. So, like, they held on to him for way too long. Nobody thinks that they should have done that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Sorry, the way you were phrasing it
was
just fucking weird.
I mean, because he knew he wasn't coming back. Sorry.
Yeah, I will say this now, like Red Bull having a veteran driver in that second seat was really weird to begin with. Because if you look at it, they always had one rookie, one veteran. Max has been a veteran since 2018, 2019. To say, like, they should have had another rookie right behind Max, ready to go. And they didn't because they let them meet. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. They did try it because they had Albon and Gasly both in there. They tried to keep it going, but the meat grinder just took over. So they got off of their own thing because they got in their own heads. Now, you have 3 drivers in your stable that are all hungry for that second seat right now. Like Hajar, I don't think Hajar is going to make it out of RB. I really don't. That dude's attitude is beyond insane. Like, ugh.
It would need some substantial growth and some changes from him for sure. But that's part of this, right? Like he's a young kid, let's see what's going to happen. But I would agree with you. I don't think he's going to end up leaving VCARB. Yeah.
So my bold prediction will be 3 of the 4 top teams, both drivers will take themselves out this year. Like the teammates will take each other out. Because if you look at Oscar and Lando, they're going to be going at it. Like Oscar does not give a fuck anymore, especially after Horner saying, which driver would you take? And he goes, I take Oscar.
Do you think that there's going to be team rules in effect more so though?
No.
Like I believe, no. You think I disagree, man. I think that they're preparing for this and are prepared for this to try and mitigate any kind of conflicts, especially after the issues that we had in 2024 between the two of them. So like
Okay.
papaya rules are gonna be edited, or it's gonna be clearly dictated ahead of the race. And I also think that McLaren is going to be more strategic in trying to get one of them the drivers.
Now, here's the thing, and this is something that's always happened with anybody who's ever tried to run two drivers at once. One of them is going to leave. Absolutely, one of them is going to leave at this point. There's no questions. And I guarantee you Oscar has a provision in his contract, just like Lando probably does, where if they tell the other one that this is who we're rolling with this year, that other driver can walk immediately after. He'll finish out his season, and then he'll walk. So you've got to figure, do you want Lando, who's, I hate saying it like this, but an absolute head case? Lando, you can get knocked off of his game so easy, it's not even funny.
Yeah, we saw wonderful examples of it throughout the season that we just
Monza.
Watched. Like, it was Monza. A recap of him melting down.
I mean, Monza, they said that his car wasn't even that bad whenever him and Max collided in what was that, Austria? Yeah, it was Austria. Whenever him and Max collided, his car could have gotten a new tire on it and went back out. He chose to get out of that car. Like, that is some baby level shit. And that is not somebody who's going to win a world championship. Now, you have to look at it.
I remember that, and remember criticizing him for it. And
I think we both did, yeah.
His desire. Yeah, because it was like, hey, you could have finished that race.
He could have gotten into those pits before Max, too, easily.
Yep. And Max still finished in the points, correct me if I'm wrong.
He finished 5th, so he finished high in the points. So, well, not high, but mid, but...
So it was a poor decision on him. It was one of those things, though, too, where, like, exactly what you're saying, like, he crumbles under the pressure of it. He could not handle the wheel-to-wheel aspect of Max. And I think, he literally walked away from the fight, and that was it. He could not, like, mentally, and, not necessarily a head case, but, like, mentally, it was not there for him. And whereas, like, if you look at, like, a Kimi Räikkönen or a Michael Schumacher or some of these guys who just, like, look forward to the wheel-to-wheel battle and look forward to that challenge, they don't back down from it. They go seek it out. Senna and Prost, like, another perfect example. All these great drivers that we herald and call them heroes, it's because they seek out that wheel-to-wheel conflict, that mental battle and edge against another, like, finely tuned competitor, and it's like, all right, but may the best man win. Whereas in this instance, like, he just didn't have it. So I don't think that he's capable of beating Oscar, because mentally Oscar, I think, is stronger, more stoic, and capable of handling the pressure. But Oscar doesn't necessarily like a good wheel-to-wheel fight either. He's seemingly more finesse-based and likes to just, like, okay, I'll let you make a mistake and then I'll pass you, versus trying to push you and pressure you into making a mistake, which is what he's going to need to do to Lando to take that top driver spot away from him.
Yeah, you're just, you're describing exactly what Carlos was doing throughout the season with Leclerc. That's exactly what Oscar needs to be doing, right? It's really interesting because, going back to Liam for just a hot second, it seems to me that Liam has it figured out that kowtowing to Max is not in his best interest now that he has a seat. Liam, based upon what I saw him doing with Checo and others, seems like the guy that will give it a go. Now, you talk about pressure. He's already got the pressure because he's Max's teammate. That's built into the process. But he doesn't seem like he's afraid to go out there and race. I don't know. I mean, we'll see, obviously, coming in a couple of days, how that really plays out, right? Where he lands in qualifying and then who he's battling. But if Liam and Max are close to each other on the grid, I'm going to be watching those starts really carefully because
I don't think the fear for Liam is an issue or like a confidence level the way that you see with say Lando. I do think that like quite the opposite. The lack of maturity and the desire may not measure up to the talent, and so what he needs to do is rely on his years of experience to know how to do these things like you're pointing out with science. Sit back, be patient, wait for your opportunity. Also, like, don't flip off your teammates.
Yeah,
don't make an ass out of yourself.
Well,
those are the immature bullshit.
Yeah, well, those are the personality things that I'm reflecting on about him that I think are telling about what he may do, because that's pretty ballsy for somebody stepping into a seat mid-season, well, whatever it was in the season. It's just pretty ballsy of him. And I think now that the seat is his seat, right? Literally his seat, I think we're going to see more of that emerge from Liam.
I do think it heavily contributed to him getting that seat. And Jay, sorry for cutting you off. I'll let you finish in a second. I do think that attitude, like, and while we'll look at it and call it immature, it was what they were looking for to fill a seat, right? Like, there was questions about DR3's commitment to the sport anymore, and does he still have the drive and the desire? And for whatever reason, they overlook Yuki's. And Jay, I want you to comment on that too. Like, Yuki's still not getting the spot, but I am perplexed that Yuki didn't get the spot. But I do think his like rash immaturity and like translated for them the desire and the cutthroat nature that they're looking for. And that's what they like. Checo didn't have all freaking year. And we saw it, right? Especially after Monaco. He just didn't have the drive to win anymore. He lost it. But go ahead, Jay.
So what I'm going to say is there's a big fucking difference between playing with the V carbs and flipping off the driver that is already on their way out. Like, there's no way that he did not know coming into that was not an interview. Like, that was straight up get fucked, like, I'm taking your seat. Absolutely. Now, I don't think he's going to be able to get away with that shit with Max at all. Like, not in the slightest. Because you got to remember, they've never really considered Lawson one of their strong ones in that stable. So,
I don't believe that he'll ever be a threat. I don't believe he'll ever be a threat to Max at all. I don't think that that's even it's a non-starter of a conversation, because I don't think Lawson has the talent to keep up with Max. But you were saying you think he's kind of a placeholder?
Yeah, definitely. Because they're going to see how 2025 goes. And if there is a chance at Oscar, they're going to go for it. Because here's the fun thing. Both Mercedes seats are up for grabs next year. One of the Alpine seats, the two Cadillac seats. I just saw this earlier today, too. This is going to anger me now. But there's like 7 seats up for grabs at that point. Now, if you have a Oscar coming out where Horner is going to go to him and be like, I want you to race Max to the fucking end of time. This is what I want to see. Just don't crash the fucking car.
This is where the threat comment comes to play for me, because you said you don't think he's a threat talent-wise. But that's why I think he is a threat to Max, because a Liam Lawson overzealous can be the reason why Max DNFs a couple of races. And it changes the perspective and the trajectory of a World Drivers' Championship because of how aggressive he can be. Because Liam was doing some cool things and getting past some people and all that. But that's why I said if they have a quali close together, and they're going into turn ones week by week together, That's going to be interesting stuff to watch.
So I don't think if Lawson goes wheel to wheel with Max, Lawson's not going to have a job the next race.
Concur. Yeah, I think the team will clamp down on it. We won't see what we see at McLaren with Red Bull. They'll kibosh that shit quite quickly.
Yeah. Not just that, Red Bull is going to try to put every dime possible into 2026. So any additional damage to the cars, anything like that, they're not going to fucking tolerate. Like, they're going to be like, no, you can feel free to get fucked.
Which makes your don't crash the car comment like all the more solidified, because I do believe that that is the thing too. Williams might be in some significant trouble if they can't stop crashing the damn cars. Hopefully Albon keeps his shit together. I'll say
I hope
one
he does
positive
it, 'cause I
thing.
think he needs to go.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. You and I are agreeing with this. One thing that I harped on last season quite a bit, that I actually enjoyed a little bit more coverage of and was surprised, was Esteban Ocon. I feel a little slightly different about the dude. I don't think I've necessarily given him his just desserts or his credit that he deserves. And I think also, too, I kind of bought into a lot of the narrative of him being a villain and an antagonist, you know, whether that's from Drive to Survive or just the coverage that he receives in the media. I don't think he's, you know, the devil that I've made him out to be. He seems like a pretty well put together kid. And I think Craig loves to correct me the most on Ocon stuff. But yeah, decent dude. Seems like he's a very decent dude.
I've told you that quite a few times, actually. Me and Greg.
I know.
Is that like,
yeah.
He, out of every driver on the grid currently, he has by far the most to prove and the most at risk, because his family literally sold everything in order for him to be able to race. So now he feels like he has to move forward and take care of them and everything else. Like, I don't doubt for a second that like that dude's motivation is through the roof, and that's why his fuck you is so high. Like,
yeah, it's one of those things where, and I believe I called myself out for it. And I said, like, if I ever met him in person, I'm sure I'd love the dude. You know, he'd be like my new best friend. But, you know, I just don't know him well enough. It was one of those things where I appreciated the additional access and like an opportunity just to quote unquote get to know him better, you know? And so it definitely did change my position on him. I started seeing things through the lens that you and Greg do. And instead of, you know, kind of like a negative media capture, which is what we were getting out of it before. So there was some good traits about this Drive to Survive season. One of those things is, it's steadily changing my opinion on Ocon. Seems like an all right guy.
But what we got bunny trailed. Where we were supposed to talk about the Yuki thing. See, this is what happens when we don't have notes.
Yes, I know.
It's not your fault. It's my fault too. So,
Yuki.
So the Yuki thing. Yuki got screwed straight up, no questions asked. And at this point, I'm kind of wondering if they weren't just looking for that placeholder, and that's why Lawson got it. Yuki would have raised the balls off that car, and he would have pushed Max to everything that he possibly could, because Yuki has nothing to lose and everything to prove. So
I hope he has a really, really fucking phenomenal season for himself and ends up getting signed somewhere else. I don't believe it would be Cadillac. I do think Alpine maybe. Also maybe Williams. If our friend Albon doesn't keep the car together and stops it from shredding it to pieces. Although Yuki can be a little bit crash prone, you know, himself. He has cleaned it up, you know, in the recent years. So I don't know. I would maybe Sauber. You think where would Yuki go besides VCARB? Sauber would make the most sense to me. Audi.
So I don't disagree with you on that one, but at the same time, I do. I don't think he would go to Sauber or Audi. Sorry, now you got me doing it, dude.
Well, yeah, I mean it's gonna one and the same, interchangeable names.
Yeah, but I think Yuki would end up going to like, I know they're saying, he can't depend on us to help him get a job basically and everything. But I could see him going to Aston Martin. I don't think Lance Stroll lasts past this year. I really don't. I think he's finally going to be like, enough is enough. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm kind of like, because I mean, like we talked about last season, the mental health bashing that dude has to take on a daily basis is enough. Like, even if you are the most charismatic person in the world, that's going to eventually hit you like hard. So,
because it literally is from all sides for him, and this is like we had an episode where I discussed my level of empathy for him after he beached the car, but like honestly, what's the kid supposed to do? You know what I mean? He was born into this, and it's not necessarily his fault that he's in the circumstances that he's in.
Right,
it's
exactly.
Also where like he's really not the worst driver in the world. You know what I mean? There's other examples. Like he's not a Mars, Albon's okay as a driver, but like Marsden, like is the one that jumps to my mind. Like firstly, when you think about this, and then there was that kid in like F3 or F2 who bought his way in and immediately got banned. Like
I love that kid
because it was so awful. This is not the case with Stroll, although he's just under the microscope. But I agree with you too. Like it's taking its toll. The weight on his shoulders it's like, why do I have to keep carrying this? He had a respectable career as an F1 driver, and he could walk away from it and be fine and do things in the business side and business operations, whatever his dad wants him to do or wants to let him do. So yeah, I would not be surprised if we saw a Lance Stroll exit after this year. I don't think that Aston would go with Yuki. I think they would go with a different driver.
Unless if they can get Max, they're not going to go after Russell. Like, that's just not going to happen. I think George Russell, unless if he stays with Mercedes,
no reason, no need.
Out. Yeah.
Really?
So
I think he'll stay in with Mercedes because they're so heavily invested in him. But I do believe that if he doesn't perform and gets outperformed by a rookie, then there's going to be some serious questions for 2026.
I said what I said. Like realistically, I think Antonelli's going to blow his fucking doors off and call it a day. Too. And that's why I don't think George is going to have a seat after this year or after this year.
Can't I disagree with you there? Like, no, if he does indeed get embarrassed and cannot perform, especially after all the hype that he's talking and about how he wants to be competitors with Max, it's like, all right, dude, words are one thing, actions are another, and your performance does not speak to what your words are saying. So I don't think his time is that short. Like, I think it would take 2 consecutive seasons of non-performance from Russell and getting outperformed by a rookie driver for him to lose his seat. I think Mercedes is way too loyal for him and that they'll give him plenty of opportunity. It also depends on the car, right? And is it him or the car? If it's legit just him and he's getting he's getting spanked by Antonelli week in, week out, okay, maybe then 1 year. But I just think Mercedes is too invested, too loyal, wanted him to be the second coming of Lewis, want a lead driver like him. So barring a signing of a Max or another championship caliber driver, they wouldn't have. Who else are they going to trade him out for? He's a top 10 driver.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. He is. But I do think that,
I just don't know where else they would go.
I don't know. But I definitely agree with Jay that Antonelli is going to outshine him this year.
And I think that's going to
cost. They could sign Oscar. They could sign Oscar. I think that would be the way that it played out. Most logically, would be Mercedes would chase after
Oscar. Would not go anywhere that doesn't have a Mercedes engine for his first foray away from McLaren. He's going to stick with the Mercedes engine more than likely.
Why? This is his first Mercedes engine.
Yeah, because I mean they've just won a constructors with it, so that's
Yeah,
kind of a
Doesn't mean
factor.
shit because realistically, look at
Nah,
all
it's
the other
solid
Mercedes
logic.
engines on the grid.
Mm,
That McLaren is due to the engineering on the body. It has nothing to do with the engine because Mercedes was
They both work in
fourth.
concert together. That engine is reliable.
did it?
Mercedes is
Good
in
engine.
fourth. Who else has Mercedes engines right now? McLaren, Mercedes, Aston Martin,
Williams.
Williams.
Mhm.
Where was Aston Martin, Williams, and Mercedes?
It was never an engine failure. It was driver error, and it was body mechanics, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the
That's what I'm
Mercedes
saying,
engine
like,
is
the
reliable.
engine's been great.
I see Fabian's point. I'll take his side on this.
Yeah, I just think that would be a factor in any move that he made right now, because he's not going to jump into something that's an unknown for him in terms of the engine. That's a huge thing. No, you're not going to DNF because of engine bullshit. Is definitely high on the list if I'm moving teams and making a statement, trying to make a statement.
But he wouldn't turn away from Red Bull or Ferrari either. To be fair to that statement and that comment and what Jay is saying. So like I don't necessarily think that he absolutely needs desires a Mercedes engine, but like go with what you know, and the logic makes sense.
Right.
But I think that he would take a gamble, especially with the 2026 regs. We don't know who's going to be who. Like it's going to be.
But everybody's concerned. Everybody's concerned that Mercedes will have the leg up for some reason. On those regs.
Do you think it's because of the engine?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's concern ever since they announced the regulations was that Mercedes would likely be at the tip of the spear on that.
So that's where
Red Bull is going through this transition between Honda, Ford, which you like Jay and Greg both pointed out, like 80 to 90% of the components on that car are going to still be Honda for a year or two. The engineer needs to catch up to itself. What other? Go ahead, Jay. You had something.
Yeah.
So I completely brain farted that 2026 changes the engine, so I apologize for that. I don't necessarily know though if it's going to be Mercedes is going to hit it like they did with the turbo hybrids. I really just don't know.
Yeah.
Because why would fucking Lewis walk out? Like, it makes no sense whatsoever. Unless if Lewis is retiring in 26. That's the only thing that makes sense. And he wanted that one shot at the red car.
Well, remember, now in that same narrative, the other team that people think is going to do well with the new regs is Ferrari. That's what the story's been. Mercedes at the tip and Ferrari right behind them. That's been the call. Now, who knows? I mean, it's a crystal ball, right? Who knows what's going on? But
Exactly. Yeah. Because you got Adrian Newey over at Aston Martin now, and they could quite easily emerge as the premier car on the grid in 2026 for that reason alone, because they've got the god, of aerodynamic engineering. And if anybody knows how to find a way to shave a couple milliseconds and 10 seconds off a lap time, it's Adrian goddamn Newey. And his contribution to Aston can't be overlooked. You combine that too with my bold prediction for 2026. I know we're a year ahead of it, but like Aston Martin's going to come out swinging hard as the number one team on the grid. And I think it's going to be difficult for anybody to stop Aston Martin. Now this 2025 bold predictions and what they do with drivers.
And they're going to Honda engines, correct? They're going to Honda engines, correct? In 2026.
Yes, they are.
Or is it this year?
Yes.
It's 2026 because Red Bull still has the exclusive until end of next year.
Correct. Which is good. I mean, we've complimented him several times, but Lawrence Stroll, in spite of hiring his not up to par son as a driver and giving him a perennial, perpetual contract, solid business moves, like very, very like intuitive, genius level dealings in Formula One. Like this dude knows how to own a team. I think that their success and track record in 2026 is going to be reflective of his performance. Because he has done literally everything that you can to build the right team. And I think we're going to see the fruits of those labors coming up here pretty soon. So we're getting close to wrapping. What other bold 2025 predictions do you guys have?
How many new rookies are there? 6 or 5?
6.
5 or
Bierman,
6.
Colapinto, Hadjar, Antonelli, Duhan, and I'm missing somebody.
Well, you can't count Colapinto because he's not
Liam. Well,
racing yet.
technically Liam Lawson, because he's
Yeah.
Well, we can't count.
not Colapinto. I meant you got Bortoletto.
Bortoletto. Okay. I was like, the fucking team.
That's your 6. It's 33. It's like 33% of the grid is new.
Which is
at least 2 of them will be gone before 26 or during 20, like at the beginning of 26.
Okay, two current rookies gone before the start of the next season. What happens if Hadjar flames out really bad early? What do you think is there? What do they do then?
That's a tough one because they've put a lot of time and money into Hadjar, and I don't see them giving up on him easily. But from what I heard, there's one other Red Bull driver who just needs super points right now. And the kid's a monster, like absolute god tier monster. So that'll be really interesting to see what happens there. But
as much as I want to indulge in the hopium, and I see it in the media too, like other people want this as well. I do think DR3 is done and retired.
Oh, DR3 is dead done.
I think it's going to be Enchanté and funny videos online for him going forward. I think he's out completely of the sport.
He might become a broadcaster, maybe.
That would be something cool. Like any more content from the dude, obviously I love because he's such a great personality, and such a cool part of the sport. But yeah, I think he's done. Although there's like tons of people making it for 2026 with Cadillac. Nah.
He's already told him no.
Yes, and so I think, man, if he wasn't Chinese, Zhou Guanyu could drive for Caddy, but it won't happen. So that's a not so bold prediction. I do think Lawson finds a way to lose the seat at Red Bull. Like I don't think he finishes where he started. I won't say that 2 rookies are going to lose, but I do think that out of all the rookies, he's got the best chance and likelihood of losing his seat. Who do you guys think?
He's got the highest powered microscope on him,
Exactly. And that RB2 seat is just, like we said, it's so hot, and that they are willing to toss away legit real talent if it doesn't show up as they want, right? Like, look at Gasly, like he was good. If they had bided their time and waited with him, he would have been a decent driver for them. But like they just didn't give him the time. And I don't think
popped that kid's name in chat for you that you were talking about.
I saw that. Yeah.
Arvid.
Thank you.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be really good. Random topic, but we talked about Marzipan earlier. Did you guys see his dad was at testing?
Yeah, I did see that. I predict there's going to be a team ownership change, and he will buy a team. I don't think his son's going to be driving for it, but I think that he is aiming and looking to. He's scouting a team.
Yep. and I think he wants to buy into one or buy one completely. And he's
Mhm.
probably
What do
the
you-
only person that's that interested that could do it.
What team do you think he would buy if he could buy one?
Alpine is the most open to investing, right? And they've struggled the most and not returned for their investors. So I would be curious to see if he was looking at Alpine. Yeah.
So
I
you
would
think
that
you think
they'd make a
Briatore
deal.
is courting him?
I think that he's trying to force his way back into the sport, and
Mhm.
he wants a place back in the sport. But I don't think that like it has anything to do with his son driving. I think it's just a business thing. He wants to make
Right.
money off of it, and he also like these guys, especially billionaires, especially oligarchs, have giant egos. So I do think he wants to go around and put fingers in eyes of people that didn't let him play in the sandbox. You know.
Mhm.
So interesting. I'm curious. Something's going to happen with this dude in 2025, and that's my bold
Right.
prediction.
So
I'm
my
going to
own
say
question- sorry.
Constructors Championship winner. I'll let you actually go ahead and chime in on this, Jay.
I was gonna say, I don't think they'll let him buy a team. I think they would let Andretti buy a team before they would let him buy a team.
Really?
Realistically, because it's bad for brand. It is absolutely god awful for brand right now. So you're gonna have somebody who's homeboys with Putin being an owner of an F1 team. I don't think so. Especially whenever we can't even have a race in Russia currently. So, how? Like, just straight up, how are they going to do it?
Hmm.
Money
Especially
talks, man.
considering that guy's
Money,
a dick.
money talks.
You can say money talks all you want, but at the end of the day, the FIA is still the one that has to actually go through it. And then on top of that, Liberty Media has to approve it along with the current owners group. It's not going to make it through all three.
It may
Because
not
every
end up
brand,
being him owning it outright indirectly. It would come from a company or a shell company or some company that he's invested with. That it's like not directly attributed to him. But there's ways of doing this if he wants it.
Hmm.
And I don't think that the convictions of the FIA or Liberty Media are so strong that they wouldn't let him either. Right?
it's nothing
Honestly,
to do with
no.
convictions. It's about protecting the brand.
Still don't
Because I
think
mean, obviously, we've had our discussions.
Why'd they
about
let him? Why'd they
Aramco.
let him buy the team? Why'd they let him do it in the first place? Right?
What happened? What happened?
Why did they, with Oz? Why did they let him invest and join the sport and do anything? And yeah, they
Okay.
did kick him out. After the
What
invasion.
happened?
But
Yeah.
okay, so they did. But how convicted are they? Especially now, especially with the political climate now,
So there was
where it's
definitely
literally money. Money matters more than conviction right now, especially right now.
On another note, real quick, Jay, you look really good in that hat. That's a nice hat.
Thank you. I know.
It
Still
actually
waiting
is.
on my other one to get here.
Actually, really nice.
I'm
My boy.
busy.
My boy's sporting some swag. I love it.
But
So my
Jay,
thing
I
lately
still
has
have
been
your hat.
Poshmark. That's my secret. $40 Formula One hat, official hat from Poshmark for $15.
Hell
Tags
yeah.
and all. Yeah, that's what
You
I've
also
been up
found
to.
like a pretty rare one too.
Oh, this is the rarest, strangest hat. I've never seen this hat. I can't even find it anywhere. This is sick.
Yeah,
That is nuts. Trucker style, mesh back, the whole deal.
I fucking
That's
hate-
also legit Ferrari kit.
yeah.
Like,
Yep.
Unbelievable. But yeah,
See-
this is great.
I prefer these types, like the flex fits. I
Flex
Flex
fit?
fit.
Yeah.
That like 2001 classic, baby.
Yeah, I've started a little collection of stuff. It's pretty good. It's coming along.
What's your bold
Marco.
prediction, Fabian? Since I kind of stomped all over you
For this year or next year?
Bold prediction.
this year.
Oh yeah. Well, I think I covered that at the beginning. I was talking about Antonelli winning a couple of Grand Prix. I think he's on.
Mm-hmm.
That's my primary one. I don't know until after I see the first 2 or 3 races where the rest of things are really going to go. Like I'm not prepared to say anything about the Ferrari Lewis situation yet. I'm really curious to see what Max is going to be able to do in this car. I don't know exactly what he's got under him just yet. So, what I like about it is that whether the car is too much this or too much that, Max has the ability to work with it, right? And find a way to win with it, or at least be competitive. So it's going to be interesting to see, because this is the last year of his contract too, isn't it? I believe, or is he through 26? He might be through 26, but it's because he's 26. Because he's closing in on the tail end of that. I'm really curious to see, like, if he has a problematic ride, how vocal he is about it with all the new regs and the new teams and all the stuff because the new team comes in that can shuffle some people around that are already in seats elsewhere too. I'm really, really curious about that. So I don't have a bold prediction about it, but I do think that we're going to see some stuff this year when it comes to the impact of these rookies on the grid and our top guys, whether it's Lando, Oscar, Lewis, Leclerc, or Kimi, because I think Kimi's going to be in that conversation. I think he's going to be there somewhere.
Jago Court.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Well, I already said about the rookies, 2 of them being gone, and Doohan and Lawson are going to be my 2 choices on that one. I think. I really think those 2 arguably have the hottest seats in F1 right now. Antonelli winning a race is going to be questionable right now at best, because he's coming in and he has a lot of different expectations on his shoulders, because he's replacing Lewis. No matter how you look at it, he is replacing Lewis. And that seat is massive to fill. There's a reason why they brought in Bottas. And I think the reason is they fully expect one of their drivers to snap out. Why else would you bring in somebody that is a proven thing as a reserve driver whenever he was available, whenever you had the chance to grab him instead of Antonelli? So we'll see. I don't think Toto has all the trust in him, but I think he's got enough to let it ride for at least 6 to 8 races. So we'll see. You're muted, Fabian. You're muted, brother.
I said, yeah, it's really good stuff. Good conversation, and it's exciting, man. I'm glad that the season's back. I'm looking forward to seeing. I like the fact that Australia is the first race. I think it's a good choice. Let them stretch these limbs on these cars a little bit. We'll get to see some really interesting things in the telemetry, and it's going to be really fascinating to see where the commentators and the pundits, where they're landing on things, because they always leak their preferences. I always look forward to that too, to see who's talking about what the most, So
yeah, I think we're going to see some interesting shakeups throughout the teams.
Yeah.
Who do you guys have for Drivers' Championship, Constructors' Championship? So Drivers' Championship for me, I am going with Lando Norris. think Lando is going to hang on. He's going to persevere. He's going to sustain and take the pressure. I think McLaren's going to have the best car, and he's going to capitalize on his momentum and hopefully get out of his way on first lap and start dilemmas. Constructors Championship, I think McLaren is going to take it. I think there's going to be some serious, brutal, conversation out there at McLaren, because I think Piastri is finally ready to just be like, no, I deserve this. I deserve the Drivers' Championship. For whatever reason, though, he's not going to be able to beat Norris and overcome it. So that's my bold prediction. But let's go ahead and push it over to you guys. Jay, what's your constructors and Drivers' Championship predictions?
Constructors Ferrari.
Ooh.
Because Vasseur has love for both those boys, and he's going to let them push. That car looked nasty as fuck. Drivers' Championship, though. I think Max is going for Schumi's record. And I think he can still get it. Because you got to figure, you have Antonelli and Russell at Mercedes, Oscar and Lando at McLaren, Lewis and Leclerc at Ferrari. All of them are going to fight more with their teammate than anything else. They're going to lose positions, and Max is a fucking shark, and he will take advantage of it. Lawson is not going to be anywhere near him in order to do anything about it to stop it either, I don't think. So, realistically, how did Max win last year's championship besides having, 5 races up on Lando? 4 races? 5? Can't remember. Regardless, he used that, though, against Lando because McLaren couldn't figure out their own shit. If Zach Brown does that again, which he's already saying he's still going to do that, McLaren's out. And Ferrari's going to pounce on that World Drivers' Championship. Mercedes, I don't think have the car yet. They might get a win or two, but that's going to be cold weather tracks.
Do you think with some of these inter-team competition matchups, do you think that a team like Ferrari would step down on that and be like, okay, no, Lewis is hey, Charles, sorry, but we're trying to get Lewis his 8th championship and try to alleviate some of that competition? Or do you think they are just going to let him fight?
I think so. A couple of months, or what was it, before last season, there was talks about teams creating these super teams, basically, where they have 2 superstar drivers just going at it because they want to see that racing still. They do not want Red Bull winning, Max winning, 18 of the races or something stupid like that. Mm-hmm. They don't want to ever see that again. They want these super teams. Now, in the fact that you mentioned Ferrari, I am going to highly disagree with that because they have literally been building that franchise around Leclerc for the past 6 years. If you think they're going to throw it all out just because Lewis came in there, not going to happen. Mm-mm. Charles is that franchise, and he will continue to be that franchise. If Lewis has a shot at it, so be it. But I guarantee you, Lewis came in and said, I want to drive the red car like Mike did. If I can win a title in it, cool. But I still want to win, or I still want to win races as a Ferrari driver.
Yeah. I think that Lewis pushing Leclerc, which is a natural outgrowth of his presence there, is going to help Leclerc get his first World Drivers' Championship. That's what I believe. That's what I put in the chat when you immediately asked the question. I do believe that McLaren still has the edge in development, and I think they will win the World Constructors' Championship. I do. I don't think it will be Ferrari. But I do think that with the rookies on the grid and the things that can happen in the races and the impact that that can have on Max's ability to navigate, I think Charles Leclerc, pronounced properly, I think he can get one.
So we all forgot about
I
this.
put the hat on.
We really all forgot about this. Technical regulation coming out after Barcelona. McLaren is fucked. They are literally eliminating anything possible for flexi wings. Like, it is game over. It is done. I know Ferrari went deep on that research. I know Mercedes went deep on that research, and obviously McLaren has as well.
I don't know if they're
Max
fucked.
can.
I wouldn't say they're fucked because they have plenty of time to plan and prepare for it.
Yes, but if their whole car was built around that ability to have that flexi wing, that means they're going to have to come out with a B-spec car in a year of regulation change. That's not going to happen.
I don't know that the car would have to have been built around it
We'll
because
see.
it is the
Yeah.
terminal piece of the process, and you know the idea that it opened up to give them less drag there, as opposed to it now. If it was the front wing, or
It
something
is
like
the
that,
front wing.
that'd be a different
It's
thing.
both.
Well,
Yeah.
I saw some stuff about, or was that Mercedes? I might have the wrong car.
I think
was
it was
thinking about-
Mercedes.
I was thinking about the one that was showing the amount of dive on the rear wing of the Mercedes. That's right. I'm incorrect. I was thinking about another one. Yeah, the front wing for Ferrari, for McLaren, Mercedes was having some serious flex last year too.
And that's why I said what I said.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I don't know that they'd be necessarily, because
It's going to throw all their aerodynamics out of whack.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, I was thinking about this stuff that's been popping up lately from testing on.
I think they have the time to prepare to
Really?
compensate. But what that repair and reconfiguration looks like,
Yeah.
you're right. Like that is a hinge point that needs
Hmm.
to be addressed by them, obviously. I wouldn't expect to see the same level of dominance. I still think McLaren will find the way. And I think with their driver pairing that like it still gets them the constructors. But excellent points being made. All right, gents. I think we're ready to wrap unless you guys got any alibis.
No, we're good. I just would recommend that you guys definitely keep up with the telemetry analysis from that gentleman from F1 Data Analysis who just landed his PhD along the way. That guy is he's the real deal. I've been reading his a lot of his research. He published a link to all of his research that led up to his PhD. He's legit.
Drop that link in the chat, and we'll add it into
I'll put that in for you.
Comment section for this episode. So yeah,
for sure.
Hey guys, this has been great. This is Formula One Fans of America, Season 2, Episode 1, and we are very much looking forward to the start of the season. It's race weekend. I cannot wait for next Monday. We'll talk to you all soon. And thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Thank you to both of you for your time.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you all next week. Bye.
It's been fun. You bet.